Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Ealing Road podcast, where on today's show, we're going to be previewing Brentford's visit to the Amex on Saturday, where we play Brighton. I'm delighted to say that Kieran Maguire is back. And Kieran, today we're not talking about football finance. How are you doing?
I'm really looking forward to talking about anything other than football finance. So yeah, I'm great for this. Mike, how are you?
I'm really good. Just before we get going, remember to drop a comment down below, subscribe to the YouTube and Spotify channels, follow us on the socials at the Ealing Road on Twitter, at Ealing Road Pod on Instagram. And also, if you haven't already seen the two episodes that we've already done in the international break, the first with Pontus Jansson and the second with Tim Vickery, looking at our two Brazilian forwards, then go do so now. Those episodes are live across all platforms. Kieran, have you enjoyed the international break?
Yes, I have. I wasn't anticipating, but the results for Scotland and the Republic of Ireland, although I've clearly got affiliations with the Republic of Ireland historically, but not. Yeah, I'm an England fan. Yeah, that was great football. That reminded me why we're in love with the game, even though the standard of football wasn't very good. That's a complete irrelevance. Those you cannot beat last minute turnovers the way that we saw, and three of those Scotland goals were incredible as well.
Yeah, they were. They really were. I feel like there's been a million international breaks, but I feel like already this season. But I feel like that one, when you get treated to drama like that, they are quite welcome, I'd say. On to Brighton, Kieran. Could you give me a summary of the season so far? It kind of seems a little similar to ours, at least by results.
Yeah, C plus.
Yeah,
probably a couple of weird victories in the Carabao Cup, followed by a regulation defeat to Arsenal, and results have been okay. We've seemed to have done slightly better against the teams we wouldn't have expected to have done, beating Manchester City at home and Chelsea away, and frustrating throwing away points or not making as much progress against some other teams where you'd hope you get some form of a result. Drawing away at Wolves, and Wolves are a poor team, but they didn't deserve to lose against us. Mm-hmm. Giving away late goals at home to Fulham and Spurs as well. So yeah, it's okay. I think, and I suspect this might apply to many Brentford fans as well. You now sort of reach that philosophical point of participation in the Premier League and thinking, what exactly is the point of it all? If the ambition is to be, between 7th and 10th, is that the extent of my ambitions for the rest of my supporting career? Because you're reasonably confident of not being. So certainly, I think we're not anticipating a relegation dogfight this season, but you lose 4 or 5 games and everything can change.
Go on. You continue.
And at the top end of the table, you've got three or four clubs there who are clearly substantially ahead, and some of the clubs that have performed poorly last season are performing less poorly this season. So that effectively ties up the first 6 or 7 places due to budgets. And you go, well, okay, so being the best of the rest, wow.
Well, I mean, for Brighton, at least in the last few seasons, European campaign, and there 2 European campaigns as well. I want to say one.
Just the one.
So it does feel like if there's one of Brentford's, Brighton's, Fulham's, Bournemouth's, those kind of teams, if there's one to kind of really mount a charge and kind of solidify a spot in the kind of top 8 going forward, it would seem that Brighton, having the most recent success, would be that one. But I was going to ask you this at the end of the pod, but now we're talking about it. What is success for Brighton this season, would you say?
Well, I think there's additional pressure on the club because Crystal Palace won the FA Cup last season. Mm-hmm. And I know that nobody outside of Brighton and Crystal Palace gives a damn about the rivalry, but as I am one of those fans, and fair play to Palace, they deserved it. And also, I've always stated that I felt that they deserved to be in the Europa League as well, but that's a separate discussion. And for the sake of your lawyers, we won't go into it in too much depth. But they've got bragging rights over us, and we want to something to reinforce. But if Brighton finished 8th, that would be good. They finished can't remember. I think we finished 8th, 7th, 8th last season, and it was okay. Some nice matches, and perhaps that should be the extent of our ambition, and not get too big for your boots. I'm old enough to remember the likes of Charlton and Stoke, who got into the habit of finishing 8th or 9th every season. The fans got restless. That was communicated to the boardroom, and then the boardroom says, right, we're going to gamble. And they've gambled by Charlton not being in the Premier League for heaven knows how long, and Stoke now being out of it for 7 or 8 seasons and never finishing above, I think, 15th in the Championship. So yeah, the football's good. It's not exhilarating, but it's not awful. So yeah, the extent of our ambition is to try to sneak in to get that last European place, or ideally to make progress in the FA Cup, because we ain't going anywhere in the Carabao Cup this year.
I wonder, and not to go all existential on already, and hopefully not to veer into the world of football finance either. But you mentioned, and I don't think Brentford fans are there yet in terms of, what is the aim. I think because it's still, I don't want to speak for most Brentford fans, but for me it's still quite raw. I still enjoy going to stadiums that I've spent most of my Brentford supporting life not going to. It's not worn off on me yet, the kind of novelty of the Premier League. But are we, as one of those middling clubs, does it look less likely year on year that one of them will kind of break the establishment in terms of maybe consistently finishing in the top 8? Kind of, does it look less likely?
I think it does, and that's partly due to the fact that there's a virtuous circle. If you are qualifying for the Champions League, remember we've got 6 teams in the Champions League, we've got 9 teams in Europe. Qualifying for the Champions League in 25-26 is ridiculously lucrative, and that gives you a competitive advantage on top of the fact that you've already got a bigger stadium, you've already got a bigger sponsors, and you add another 50 million pounds minimum into the pot. For clubs like us who are in that sort of 180 to 200 million pound bracket, those clubs have now got an additional equivalent of 1/3 of our income. So Manchester United and Spurs were absolutely appalling last season, given the resources that they have available to them, and the chances of that being repeated, I think, are fairly remote. So yeah, it is going to be tough. We've got the traditional big 6. We've now got Aston Villa and Newcastle, who have bigger stadiums, have bigger fan bases. They're big cities, both of them, and therefore, I think for the likes of Brentford and Brighton, it becomes one of those is probably going to take one of the other positions in the top 7 or 8. So it means that, as you rightly say, Bournemouth, Palace, Brighton, perhaps West Ham as well. There might be somebody who has a good season who you weren't expecting. You've got probably 4 or 5 clubs chasing the opportunity to go to Lithuania on a Thursday night next season.
Which sounds really fun.
It is, if you were offered it, Mike, or if I was offered it, I'll be scouring. I'll be scouring Skyscanner, the minute it's announced. But you don't make any money in the conference.
Yeah, of course. No, I remember from our last chat that we had, it's not very lucrative. So I mean, it's more costing than it actually is in terms of bringing money in. But onto the football, Kieran, you mentioned Palace winning the FA Cup. In your last 2 games against Leeds and Palace, saw you keep consecutive clean sheets for the first time since February, which I think is as many clean sheets as you managed in 22 league games between January and October. I don't think scoring goals has ever been a problem for Hurzeler so far at Brighton, but does it seem like, at least recently from the previous 2 games, that there's a bit more focus on the defence this season?
I don't think so. I think there has been a genuine concern that the defence has been leaky. We play with fullbacks who think that they're wingers, and that being a defender is a sort of an optional add-on, which does make the club quite vulnerable. I think on the flanks, and a lot of the goals that have been conceded have also been through, like many clubs, you play out through the back. losing possession, getting turned over, and Lewis Dunk, not the quickest central defender, Van Hecker, not the quickest central defender, and you're chasing shadows and you're conceding goals. The two clean sheets were welcome. It has to be said that Leeds, and I was surprised by this, Leeds were not just the worst side I've seen this season in the Premier League, but the worst side that I've seen by a long, long way. When they came to the Amex, they really didn't give any threat at all. And I think they had one shot, and that was in the 94th minute. The Palace game was so bad as a 0-0 draw that the highlight for me was halfway through the second half. I bizarrely got a phone call from Robbie Savage, who wanted to know wage levels in League Two. And I ended up having a chat with him. And my mate's going, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm talking to Robbie Savage." What? Can I have a listen as well? I'm really bored by the match. and that's supposed to be our highlight of the Palace match is supposed to be the one with the most tension, the most jeopardy, and so on. But I think it was sending everybody to sleep. So yeah, it was a 0-0 draw where neither side deserved to score 0 goals. It was that poor.
And in terms of going forward, I think it'd be remiss of us not to talk about Danny Welbeck's form. Lots of talk about him potentially getting into the England squad. I don't know if you want to talk about that, but I mean, 35 years old or 36 now, he has been phenomenal this season, at least in terms of goal scoring. Would you say?
He is. I think he, in my opinion, and I was on a panel last night with Glenn Murray because we were doing a fundraiser for the Samaritans, and Glenn kindly agreed to come along, and he was talking about it. And I think my views, and I think the views of many fans broadly echo what was said last night, in the sense that would we ever expect Danny Welbeck to start for England in the World Cup? The answer to that is no, unless Harry Kane is injured. If you were therefore looking for somebody who could come on after 75 minutes, is cool, calm and collected in front of goal, if you're chasing the game and you need that chances, well, Danny Welbeck is that man. Would he be a fantastic influence around the squad? Because you're away for 6 weeks potentially. So you've got to get on. Danny Welbeck is a very gregarious, very affable. You pick up things from Brentford. You know who are the jokers. You know who are the people that are looked up to. You know the people who sort of, he's okay, but I wouldn't want to go out for a drink with him. Well, everybody loves Danny Welbeck. He is universally liked, and it's very noticeable that when Brighton went to both Manchester United and Arsenal this season, and Danny Welbeck was a solid player for both clubs, but the reception he got was indicative of somebody that was clearly liked by the fans of those clubs. So yes, I think he is a good striker. He has many parts to his game. He's fantastic at link up. He can press as well. Harry Kane is our number one striker, but what happens if England win the first 2 games, for example, in their group? They've already qualified. Well, the thing is, that's when you bring in Danny for that 3rd game. He'll hold things up for England. He'll be very solid. Would Ollie Watkins feel the same? Would Ollie Watkins be happy about spending 6 weeks of this summer? Because Danny Welbeck knows that it's his last chance. Ollie Watkins or somebody else, and you're thinking, well, Marcus Rashford's a different type of player. He's not a number 9. So I think that Danny is certainly deserving of consideration, but the fact that he didn't make the squad for the last 2 games is indicative that Thomas Tuchel's got his own views, and they don't agree with those of a 60-plus-year-old accountant from the South Coast.
Well, I mean, there's only one more break until the World Cup in March, so it doesn't look likely. But I think I was a little confused because the form is really good, and considering the form of other English strikers at the moment, it kind of, if you're going to call him up but not take him, but at least give him a cap in one of these games that we've had. But I guess Tuchel's here to win the World Cup, isn't he? He's not here to kind of give people caps for the sake of it. But I would have said he'd deserve one, to be honest. What about some other players? I've watched a few Brighton games. Yasin Ayari looks lively at times. I feel like maybe a couple of loans has helped because he was at Cov last year and then Blackburn the year before, I want to say. And then
he's a funny one in the sense that I suppose the Brighton model and the Brentford model, he did a Venn diagram there's one hell of an overlap, as we both know. Ayari was one of these players that was signed for somewhere between 7 and 10 million. And when he joined, everybody went, "Ooh." And we thought, oh, well, he'll go out on loan somewhere. He might come back. He broke through at the start of last season when we expected him to go out on loan again to the Championship. And that actually caused problems because Brighton had bought a few midfield players. And all of a sudden, Ayari looked very useful. This season, he's been okay. He's been getting 6s out of 10, sometimes the odd 7. Never anything sort of beyond that. At the same time, he doesn't let you down, and he's very good at when the goalkeeper passes out direct. It's often quite he's that midfield player who's prepared to drop back, pick up the ball, and you're confident reasonably that he's not going to mess it up. So yeah, he's solid. He's just a bit terrible. He's a bit beige. You know what I mean? And he's a fan. He's a Sweden international. I think he can be better. He's not as good as he's not making as much impact as he did last season, and I think that's probably a viewpoint of the vast majority of the squad, that they're probably, if you're marking players out of 10, everybody's a half below where they were last season, with 1 or 2 exceptions.
Who else apart from Welbeck has stood out then? Who should Brentford fans be looking out for on Saturday that's going to have a good game or has been having good games recently?
Minte, the winger. He has been our player of the season by some way. Brighton managed to recruit him from Newcastle. Again, he was one of these players that Brighton were after. He went to Newcastle, Newcastle bought him for 7, sent him out on loan to Feyenoord, did really well in Feyenoord for a season, came back. Newcastle were under pressure to sell because of cost control rules. So they sold him to Brighton for 30 million. He was good last season. He's been very good this season. The only issue is blistering pace, very confident dribbling, decision making. When he gets into the box, when he gets into that final third, that tends to let him down. Sometimes he'll shoot wide when he should. I always say, if you make the goalkeeper do something, I'll never have an issue. It's for example, against Palace, he was through effectively 1-on-1 with the keeper, and he put it wide, and he put it 2 or 3 yards wide. You go, well, it's just frustrating. So yeah, he's been good. And the other one who has been impressive, and sort of the last 4 or 5 matches when he's come back from injury, is Kadioglu. He is left back who would rather be a left winger. He's fantastic going forwards. When the opposition break and you're going, who's supposed to be left back? Ferdy is normally motoring up on the other wing or something, which is a football romantic. That's what you want. Seeing your left back playing as a right winger, that to me is proper football. But I think for somebody as organised as Hurzeler, it probably gives him kittens at times, and it does mean that the defence has been exposed. So I think those are sort of the two. Verbruggen in goal, he's been pretty solid. He's not been at fault for any goals, and he has made some good saves without being outstanding.
What about, and I want to talk about one other player before we talk about Kostulas, because I've seen some Brighton fans maybe calling for more minutes for him, and he's another Brentford Brighton mould kind of teenager that you pick up from nowhere, and I think there's a lot of hype around him. But between him and the other Greek signing that you made, who I can't remember the name of now, Seamas, yeah, there's a good £50 million spent between the two of them. He scored against United. I think I'm right in saying how much has he impressed, if any, if at all, and does he need more minutes? Because I have seen some Brighton fans asking for it.
Yes, it's a strange one. Again, as Brighton and Brentford fans, you've got Matthew, we've got Tony. They've got a special sauce. And we don't know, and nobody knows. It's a bit like Kentucky Fried Chicken. Nobody quite knows what's in the special sauce, but it works. And therefore, I think there's a sort of a perception that clubs such as ours can find players for less than 10 million who they're not necessarily oven ready, but they are quickly able to either go out on loan, come back in a year and impress, or they'll break through sort of during the season. That really hasn't manifested itself as far as yet for the two Greek guys. And given that they cost £50 million, I think this, for a club of our stature, that is a considerable investment. So at the start of the season, they both played in the Carabao Cup. Brighton won the first two matches 6-0 and 6-0, so that was pretty good. And they were okay. And there's the fans are willing them to deliver, but they did look a bit lightweight. What I would say is sort of in the last couple of matches, and this reflects for both of them, is they seem to have bulked out a bit now. And I think being able to challenge Danny Welbeck for the automatic striker's role is something that we are looking forward to, because as much as we all love Danny, everybody knows that Danny Welbeck's injury history throughout his career, and he is a guy that is fastidious and he looks after himself, has been a bit up and down, and he's been, he's Brighton's now record scorer in the Premier League, but he has missed sizable amounts of seasons, I think in 3 out of the 4 that he's been at the club. So there's a little bit of nervousness. Some fans are giving the owner grief about it, and I just go, you clearly have got no idea what you're talking about, because I was asked, there must be, I'm sure you must have had this, Mike, as well. Oh, there's something special about Brighton. What is it? And I just go, no, it's Tony Bloom.
Yeah.
And you go, it's Matthew Benham. That's it. And yes, I think you've got a fantastic culture at the club. And I think Brighton have got a fantastic culture as well. But that culture is set by Matthew and Tony as well. With any other owners, we would be bumbling between League One and the Championship, and we both know it. Yeah,
no, 100%. Couldn't agree more. One other player that I think we should touch on, who I've seen a bit of negativity around, Carlos Baleba. Is it too easy to say, or is it a bit lazy to say that the Manchester United rumours over the summer has unsettled him? Is there anything else that you've seen maybe as to why he's not been quite at the levels of the £100 million player that I'm sure Brighton will sell him for at some point?
Last season he was brilliant, filling a Caicedo and McAllister hole.
Yeah,
we thought, let's reset our expectations. 14th or 15th, again with a new manager coming in as well. Let's. But Baleba was magnificent last season, and I think we've had 10 games, 10 Premier League games this season. I think he's been hooked in 9 of them, and you don't normally hook your central midfield. Sometimes he's been hooked at half time. There have been signs in the last 2 or 3 games that he's improving. But as for the Y factor, yes, a potential transfer to a club of the caliber of Manchester United is always going to be attractive. And he's a young man. He's 20, 21 years of age. And by all accounts, the money that they will be able to offer will be sizably greater than that of Brighton Hove Albion. Everybody gets that as well. But he didn't agitate for a transfer. But you do feel, I don't know whether you've ever been headhunted, Mike, but it's happened to me once or twice, and I was perfectly settled where I was, and then you just feel, oh, should I? And you're not focused 100%. You are distracted. But that's not an excuse anymore. That was an August issue. We are now in November. I don't think he had a great pre-season as a result of that, and he has looked leggy. And I think there's an element of catch up. He's been away for the international breaks, and we've had 3 of them. Again, he got hooked at half time by his own manager. I don't think they're qualified now for the FIFA World Cup. So perhaps that could be a blessing in disguise. He's got nothing else to play for the rest of this season, apart from Brighton Hove Albion. And if he's got any sense, the better he plays, the better the wages his agent can negotiate for him next summer if an offer comes in.
Well, I hope his form turns around after Saturday for sure. But on Saturday, moving on to the game, I think we've covered Brighton enough a little bit. What have you made of Brentford this season? Discourse around Brentford going into it. Are you surprised with our start? 'Cause I feel like a lot of people are.
Clearly losing two strikers of Mbeumo and Wissa, people thought, well, where are the goals going to come from? I guess I've been quite fortunate. I was in Lisbon last week, and I was on a panel with Cliff Crown. I know some of the people from Brentford. I hold your club in the highest of esteem in terms of their ability to be strategic in terms of recruitment and to have thought out solutions before you've got problems. So I think a few people said, Keith Andrew, he's not a manager. Sort of all that. He's got no experience. Well, I think Thomas Frank was a manager, was he? Before he was at Brentford, he didn't do too badly for you guys. So I guess I think you're broadly performing what I'd expect you to do. You are scoring goals. I do think I'm slightly envious of the style of football that you play as well. It's slightly more direct. It's up and at them, and I would imagine if I was a fan of Brentford, I'd probably be enjoying it. You're going to get a few pastings this season, and you're going to give a few other clubs pastings. And considering where you are in terms of resources, I'd take that. Is it season 5 now for you guys? Yeah. You say the novelty factor has worn off. I didn't go to Old Trafford this season. It's the only match I've missed, and if that been our first season in the Premier League, that's one of the ones you mark off. But the view's poor, the seating's poor, the catering's poor, and without wanting to sound too bitchy, the transport back to Brighton when there's only it's a 5:30 kickoff, so therefore there's one train going back to London full of Manchester United fans. And I know that sounds cliche, but it's also true. It just wasn't worth the aggravation.
That's fair enough. In terms of Keith Andrews, I feel like maybe it's a little bit similar, our fan base, because I was listening to another Brighton pod in the week, and they were talking about how Hurzeler kind of drifts between being a genius and being useless. And I feel like maybe, at least from the fans' perspective, and I feel like at the start of the season, that was definitely the case with Andrews. There was a lot of skepticism around the appointment, naturally, I think, but also with the caveat of Matthew Benham being one of the best operators in football over the last decade. You have to trust him, and it's not blind faith. Is that fair to say that Brighton fans, in terms of Hurzeler, are kind of up and down, or is there a 50-50 split, or how are Brighton fans feeling about him heading into Saturday?
Yeah, there's a lot of people who think that because they're quite good at Football Manager and on FIFA, that automatically makes them an authority, and a better authority than Tony Bloom when it comes to recruiting the head coach or the manager, or however you want to describe their role. And I find this baffling. Hurzeler was recruited on the back of De Zerbi, and De Zerbi was wonderful, but ridiculously hard work as well. He was completely mad, which is fantastic. He by all accounts, I know some of the guys at Brighton. We get phone calls from him at 3 o'clock. I've just had this idea. I go, it's 3 o'clock in the morning, Roberto. No, but just listen to me. I think this is an amazing idea, Roberto. At 3 o'clock. So his whole life was football. So there was that void. There was the fact that a lot of people have left Brighton. You look at Ben White, Trossard, Pedro's gone, Caicedo, McAllister, Cucurella, Sanchez. Really solid Premier League players have disappeared. And to finish 8th in your first season, and all that people go, he's only 31 years of age. Well, Beethoven wrote a symphony at the age of 7, so don't worry about it. I like him. I like him. I think he's very thorough. He's very committed to his job. The only issue I have and this shouldn't really be coming from somebody like me, is his clothing.
What's wrong with his clothing?
It's as somebody said when we played us, he appears to have dressed up as a Weetabix. He was wearing this very, very strange combination of tops, and this was in October, and some of us were in shorts. He was wearing gloves. You do not. You're supposed to show leadership. You don't show leadership by dressing as a Weetabix and wearing gloves. So apart from his clothing, I've got a lot of time from him, and I like the fact, and that this is indicative again of perhaps clubs of our stature and clubs of our culture, is that he's seen on his bicycle cycling around Brighton, and people give him a wave, and they give him a wave back. You couldn't do that in Glasgow. You couldn't do that in Manchester. The thought of Pep cycling around near to the Etihad on a Tuesday afternoon doesn't bear thinking about, does it?
In terms of Saturday, Kieran, my final two questions. Based on what you've seen from Brighton so far this season, what are you expecting? And my second question is, are you good at dealing with long throws and set pieces? Because there will be many Michael Coyote cannons coming into the box on Saturday.
In answer to that second question first, no, we're not particularly good. Although I suspect what Hurzeler will do, everybody has done their homework now. I think there could be a bit of additional height. Certainly, Van Hecker and Dunk are your two leads in terms of getting first to the ball. Vifa, who is the sort of the mysterious Dutchman who was playing as in central midfield under Arne Slot in the Eredivisie, is now a makeshift right back. But he's not small. Danny Welbeck will be coming back. So I think we've got a reasonable amount of height, but we wouldn't say that we're brilliant. In terms of the match, I suspect it will be quite technical. I don't think it will be one for it. If you're just coming off the feast of the Troy Parrott hat-trick and the last 10 minutes of Scotland versus Denmark, I think you could be disappointed. I'm not expecting an exhilarating match. I'm hoping I'm wrong, but I think there's an element of caution about both sides because they respect each other too much. And then, of course, there's the additional issue, the issue we can't talk about. There's beef in the boardroom.
Yeah, there is. I mean, it's weird that I've only seen like one Athletic deep dive on the whole Matthew Benham, Tony Bloom beef. I read it. I don't know when it came out, but apart from that, no one really knows unless you've got some inside info that you're not willing to share on the podcast. But
I do have some inside information, and I will not be sharing it on this podcast.
Well, in that case, Kieran, that would be a good place to round off. The Ealing Road podcast will be back after Brighton with a full-time show. Remember to drop a comment down below, subscribe to the YouTube and Spotify channels, follow us on the socials at the Ealing Road on Twitter, at Ealing Road Pod on Instagram. Kieran, as always, sir, an absolute pleasure. Good luck for the rest of the season, but of course, not for Saturday.
Okay, and enjoy yourself. You're always welcome in Brighton, regardless of which club you support. But there's a lot of respect from Brighton fans towards Brentford, I can assure you, and rightly so.